Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel, and today I am going to get people to hate me. This is my list of unpopular opinions that I have about some music. Now, if you're someone who's into genres outside of rock and metal, you probably will have no idea what I'm talking about. So, yeah, this list of unpopular opinions of mine will be in no particular order, but I did save, and I specifically did save the last one for last. So, yeah. We can get into it. First one is, I think that Human is one of Death's best albums. Now, I think this is a pretty unpopular opinion if you ask me, because most of the fans of Death either prefer, they mostly prefer their newer stuff, like Symbolic and Sound of Perseverance, which I think Sound of Perseverance is honestly an overrated album in my opinion. And it might even be my least favorite Death album. Yeah, I think Human is an album that definitely deserves more recognition. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's their best, because I honestly wouldn't go that far. I'd say that their best are Individual Thought Patterns and Leprosy. But I think Human is an album that has almost everything you want in a Death album. I really like the second half and the first half, actually, of this album. I like almost every track on this album. I think it's one of their best. So yeah, unpopular opinion, I would say. It's an album that's overlooked a lot of times. Next up, shouldn't come off as a shock. I think that Demon Hunter is the most underrated band of all time, and of course the most underrated metalcore band of all time. And I would say that this is a fact because, when it comes to, I guess, people chatting about metalcore and like the YouTube comments and all that, like, it's really rare that you find someone talking about Demon Hunter. It's like a gem to find someone who does talk about them. And I don't know why this band doesn't get much recognition within the metalcore community. Now, obviously, this can be taken as an unpopular opinion. Maybe some of you guys can actually agree that they don't get talked about enough. But yeah, Demon Hunter not being as recognized as most metalcore bands, it is. I feel like this opinion does come with nostalgia as well, because they were the guys that helped me get into metal. Because I really like Ryan Clark's vocals, and yeah, definitely an unpopular opinion of mine, I would say. So yeah, next up, this one might come off as a shock as well, but it's that Gone is within my top 3 favorite Red albums. Now, this is actually an opinion that's been off and on with me. There were times where it's been down as one of my least favorites, and then there were times where it's really up there for me. But I think lately this album has been growing on me. I think it's better than most of the modern rock albums that we've been getting, especially with 3 Days Grace's Outsider and Breaking Benjamin's Ember. And I think those are still pretty good albums for what they are, but I think Gone kind of demolishes those, if you ask me. Definitely an album that's grown on me some, and yeah, and I think the reason that this album is considered one of Red's weakest is because of the electronics. And while I'm not too fond of electronics myself, I do think that they do work with this album. Is there a couple tracks here and there that I skip most of the time? Yes, Unstoppable. But this album, I feel like, still does carry the dark atmosphere that was within like albums like Of Beauty and Rage. With that being said, I would say that Nowadays Gone, like I said, is within my top 3 favorite Red albums, and I would say it's up there with Innocence and Instinct and Of Beauty and Rage. Yeah, unpopular opinion, I'd say. Next up, we got Between the Buried and Me's Automata 1 being one of the band's best albums. Oh boy, this is an unpopular one. It's crazy, because I know that there's people that said that their last album was even better than this album, and their last album was Coma Ecliptic, and to say that that was better than Automata 1 and 2, what? I did not care for Coma Ecliptic that much. It was more commercial and more, it was a lot softer than this album. I actually felt like their new stuff is actually a return to form, and it blows my mind to think that people prefer the new direction that they took. Definitely a crazy unpopular opinion, and it really shouldn't be an unpopular opinion if you ask me, because I mean, Coma Ecliptic was just no. I definitely prefer their new work, or their old sound, but this new sound that they have now is sort of a return to form, and I like it. So next up we got Metallica's Death Magnetic being one of the band's weakest albums. Now, this is something that I guess you wouldn't consider an unpopular opinion, but it's really hard to tell. But I do know that there is some people that actually enjoy this album. There's some people that would say that Death Magnetic is actually an underrated album by Metallica. And I think Death Magnetic, is it bad? No, I don't think it's that bad, but I do think it is one of their weakest. And I actually do prefer the Load era of Metallica over Death Magnetic, as crazy as that sounds. The album Death Magnetic, in my opinion, just didn't have much replay value. And I know some people might say, well, it was a return to form. I can see where they're coming from a little bit. But I think the closest thing we ever got with a return to form would be their newest, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, which I actually like that album more than Death Magnetic, for those who are wondering. So yeah, I would say that having Death Magnetic as one of the weaker Metallica albums is actually kind of an unpopular opinion. It actually rivals Saint Anger with me, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, we got two more. Next one is that I prefer the self-titled Iron Maiden album over Killers. Yes. Now this one, I'm kind of stepping on thin ice with this one, especially within the Iron Maiden community, because I know there's a lot of fans that do prefer Killers. I'm not really sure why. I like the vibe that the self-titled gives off over Killers. I think people like Killers more. I think the reason for that is because it's more catchy. Like, you got songs like Wrathchild and Another Life that I think are pretty catchy Iron Maiden songs, and a lot of people say that it's the best within the Paul era of Iron Maiden, but I'm gonna have to disagree. I definitely prefer the self-titled. Like I said, I like the vibe better, and it was their debut, of course, so what's to hate about it? Yeah, I would say it's an unpopular opinion to prefer the self-titled over Killers when it comes to Iron Maiden. I know some people might agree with me on this one, actually, but who knows. Lastly, it is another Iron Maiden-related opinion, and oh boy, I saved this one for last. Whew, here I go. And it's that I prefer the 1990s Iron Maiden over the 2000s. Oh boy. Ooh, ouch. I could just feel the fanboys commenting like, oh, what about Book of Souls? What about Brave New World? You know? And do I think that those are bad albums? Not necessarily. I actually think those are pretty good albums, especially Brave New World. I do prefer Brave New World over the Book of Souls, to be honest. If you guys want my honest opinion, the Book of Souls is awfully an overrated album, in my opinion. I know there's people that say it's a masterpiece, and while I do think it is good, and it's probably their best album since Dance of Death, I do think it's a little overrated. It does lack replay value, and all the songs were just too long. And yes, I do prefer albums such as No Prayer for the Dying over it. I do prefer albums such as Fear of the Dark over it. Even The X Factor. Virtual 11, that's a different story, because I still think that's their weakest album. So, yeah, if you guys want my opinion on that album, there you go. But yeah, I don't know why a lot of the 1990s Iron Maiden albums are awfully overlooked. I mean, especially Fear of the Dark. Fear of the Dark, I thought was a phenomenal record. I mean, to say that, like, even 2000s Maiden was better than that, even, like, really? Even A Matter of Life and Death, you prefer that over Fear of the Dark? Even Final Frontier, which is probably the weakest album with Bruce on vocals? It's crazy. But overall, that is just my opinion, and it's a very, very unpopular opinion. I do prefer the 1990s Maiden over 2000s. And that's really all there is to it. Some of you might agree, disagree, I don't know. But if you do prefer the 2000s Maiden, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And as a lot of you know, I do like some of the stuff that Iron Maiden has done in the 2000s. Primarily Brave New World and Dance of Death, I think, were their two best albums of their 2000s work. So there you go, guys. That is some unpopular music opinions of mine. So let me know what you guys think. What are some unpopular opinions that you might have? Let me know down in the comments. What do you guys think of my list? Thank you for watching. Have a good one, and take care.